Welcome to another Friday Functions video. And I started planning this video. I wanted to start this video all about how to manage properties from your formulas. And then I said, come to think of it, we haven't spent a lot of time introducing you to the changes to the UI in general, which heavily involve the properties. So tell you what I'd like to do this week. I'd like to take a step back and kind of introduce you to some of the changes that you may or may not have missed in the past 6 months or so. And there will be more changes coming at you as we try to simplify the UI so that it's much more logical. And as you build apps, you don't have to do as much moving around, but things will be closer to you and easier to achieve. So let me just catch you up to where we are today in this Friday Functions video. Okay, so what I have done is I've opened up one of our apps at Microsoft. This happens to be an app about inclusivity. Microsoft is really big on diversity and inclusion, and we like to think of it as diversity to inclusion, and that's a big story I'd love to talk to you about another day. But this is one of the screens in that particular app. This app has several screens. As you can see on the bottom, it has a menu bar of different screens. But it's a good example for me to use to kind of introduce you to some of the changes that have occurred. So I want to start by pointing out that you used to select an item like the gallery here. If I select this gallery, and there would be a tab that would pop up at the top that would be called the gallery tab. And that would give you some properties that were specific to galleries. Well, we decided that since you have that on the right panel already, let's go ahead and leverage this right panel over here for all of your gallery properties. So now you basically should have to do formulas less, right? Because you should be able to find them over here in the property panel. Okay, so of course, because I have the gallery selected, I can click on the data panel here, and I can open up that panel. Usually the reason I want to open this panel is to pick a different layout, right? Because we pre-configure quite a few layouts for you. And this is changing as well, what we're going to give you in this panel here. So keep your eye on what we call the layouts that you have, the layout options that you have. You have different layout options for galleries. I can also insert a new screen, and when I insert a new screen, that gives me also a set of layout options. Now, where the new screens differ from the layout is that the layout in this panel here is just for the item that I selected. Whereas when I get a new screen, I get a lot of additional things, not just the gallery. So I'm just going to click new screen here. It's not going to hurt a thing. And what it's going to do is create a new screen based on the layout I selected. And what's really awesome about this new screen layout here is that it gives me more than a gallery. So it does give me a gallery. It actually gives me a quite intelligent gallery because this gallery is sorted by a column. It's also searching from the text box at the top. And it has an automatic variable to flip from sort ascending to sort descending. All of that is built in there for me. At this point, I can just go ahead and pick my data that I want to associate with this. And notice that this works really well. There was a time when you would change your layout, and it would be hard to keep track of what does this layout represent. But you can see right now that the layout does just automatically change the data. You still have to think about the fact that when you change the layout, you remove some of those options that we gave you, such as search and filtering. And we know that this is something you don't like, and we're working to improve that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and undo that and show you how I work around that. So I will literally just go up into the formula bar, And now you can see why this is part of the Friday functions video. And I can add that data connection, or what I would like to say is I would replace it here as opposed to doing it from the layout. So I will often go ahead and cut this, right? I cut it out, and then I go to my data panel and I pick the format that I want. So let's say I want 3 fields. So I'll go ahead and choose the 3 fields, right? At that point, I can go in here and put that back and just change this data source to the data source that I used, which was, I believe, behavior definitions, okay? And then I have to also change what field I'm searching. I'm going to search the title field, and I'm going to also sort by the title field. And now everything is fine. I don't actually lose anything that I had before. I made a mistake and didn't put the quote there. So let's put the quote there. And now we're fine, okay? So that's one way. And then I'll go in here and I'll use my title, subtitle, and body placeholders to select what I want to show in my gallery. And everything kind of still works, and my sorting and my searching doesn't get broken. Again, we do know that some people have said, well, we don't like it when you remove that from us. And so we're working to see what we can do to make that better for you, okay? I'm just going to put the modified date here, and then maybe I'll put the, and here's another new thing. So I'm going to click on sample text here, and what's going to open up is all of my fields. I can get to a lot of fields, such as the link, right? That is an active link to the file. So I can either use that link property as a launching property, or I can show it here, okay? So either way you want to do it. I can also go ahead and show my ID, for instance. Again, if I want like the author's name, that's a complex field. We are still working to get complex fields easier to discover, but the author field, being that it is nested, right? I have to drill down from author to what do I want to know about this author? Do I want their email to show up, their display name, their department? What do I want to show up about them? I could even have their pictures shown up. So I'm going to choose email, and now you can see the author's name is now included in my gallery. So screen layouts give you more than a gallery layout will give you, but in some cases you'll have to kind of tweak your search and your filter to match your new layout. And so I actually keep this little formula here, and I put it in a OneNote, and I use it a lot even when I don't use screen layouts, because it's an easy way to have everything, search, sort, and in one place. And what's fun about this too is when you're configuring your galleries for search, a lot of new people who are learning Power Apps, they think they do that from the search, but they don't. All you do is figure out what do you want to call the place where people are going to type, which happens to be a text input box, right? It's a text input. And this is another thing we've changed. Now you can actually see in your properties panel not only the name of the control you've selected, but what type of control it is. And that's important because depending on the type, you have different properties available. All right. Now, if you're glancing through the properties and you don't see them in the standard, you should always check the advanced. But if for some reason you would not like to look through those two for properties, feel free. We have not changed the fact that all properties are in the drop down here on the top left. And so if you can't find them in either of those two places, they will be found here in this drop down because all properties are in this drop down. It has everything. So it doesn't leave anything out. Whereas in the property panel, you have like the most commonly used ones here. And then in the advanced panel, you have much more detail. Sometimes you have to click more options to kind of see everything you can get for properties. So it kind of depends on where do you feel most comfortable working. And And what we've seen is most people are saying that they lean towards this property panel on the right, and they appreciate it more than the formula bar. Now, I will say that sometimes the formula bar is necessary. Let's go and look back at that screen we were looking at before. We're looking at this screen here, and if I click on this screen, let's see, and then I go, and all I'm going to do is set this color to change, right? So I'm going to set the color to have a formula. This could be a rule as well. All right, I'm going to say if this item is selected, then I want this to be black. Otherwise, I want it to be that kind of a rust orange. And I didn't do the, what do you call it, the capitalization correctly here. I can just tab at the end of these to fix that. I don't have to go in there and correct that typing just by hitting the tab key. So now there's an if statement associated with the color of these numbers. So that if I select a different row, it changes the color of that different row. Now I'm going to go back because there is an action that's occurring here. So I'm going to go back to the behavior screen and just show you that if I try to go in there and use my properties panel to change the color, and you can see that here, here's the color, the fill and the color. Because that property has a formula in it, it changes itself to say FX, which is letting you know you need to edit this in the formula bar so you don't mess up what has been configured already. And so just by tapping on that, we push you into the formula bar and we push you into the right property of the formula bar. So you don't have to go find it, right? And that's something recent that we added for you. And that's kind of fun. I love the color coding also that's occurring in the formula that it pushed me into. That's something we did to help the readability of this, right? I'm not going to be able to share everything that we've done in this video, but it is kind of fun to point out these different things. Now, if that formula did not exist, so now I'm going to remove the formula so that we're back to what it originally was. So now that number is always that color, right? And there's no if statement, right? I'm going to just not provoke this select statement. Sorry, I'm going to go back. I should have taken it out wherever it is. So now you see that that's just one color. So that if I go here now, I don't get an FX. I don't get an FX because it's not a condition. And so there's no need for me to have to go to the formula bar. So it's not going to encourage me to go there. It's going to pop up a really easy to use palette of colors. That now, if I decide I want that to be purple, I can just click on it and make it purple, as opposed to having to go in there and play around with the formula bar or with the RGB colors. Now, I still can use this panel here to enter RGB values or hex values, all right? A really neat site, if you go to Google or Bing and you type in convert RGB to hex or convert hex to RGB, you can do all that very easily. And so sometimes when I want a precise color, I will go ahead and plug them in right here. But I find this to be a little easier than the formula bar, because all you need to do in that formula bar is put a period instead of a comma, and you'll start seeing those, yellow triangles that we all love dearly. This way, you don't have that situation occur. And actually, it will update as you type. The color will update as you click from one property to the next. So notice if I put 99 for green, nothing happens until I tab out of it. Then when I tab out of it, the color is actually adjusted. So tabbing in and out of things is what saves them in the property panel. Okay? And of course, if I just completely mess that up, I can always use the new area up here is our undo area. And I love that we have actually added some tool tips in here. Most of us know this, that undo is Control Z in the world of Microsoft. Whenever you want to curse, just do Control Z, and that will undo your last action, right? So I can undo that change, and usually I can go back a few steps. It depends on what you've changed as to how many steps back you can go. But I really like that that gives me the option to undo my last changes, all right? We also know that we can even undo versions just by going back and restoring the previous version. This app is totally safe because I've cloned it, so we're good, right? Now, when nothing is selected, the Properties panel is all about the screen. And I can't tell you this secret, but there's some new stuff coming up about the screen. Keep your ears open and watch the blog. So that's all I can say, but you don't want to miss it, okay? It's going to be cool, all right? But I love that I can now set a background image, right? So I can pick images from the app, right? Directly from the media in the app as a background image to the screen. And I can tile that, or I can center it and things like that. I don't want to do that in this case. But you have that option, or you can click add an image file, which will give you the opportunity to browse somewhere on your computer. Now, what's great about this option is that it's going to do two things for you. It's going to let you select the background that you want, whatever that is, and I think I'll go get a background that might work for this. But it will also just go ahead and upload it for you and make sure it's in your app in the right place. You don't have to go to the media location. You can just add your image, right? And if you, after you add your image, I'm just going to see if I can fill this with this. Yeah, so you see you've added the image. Then you can go to the view menu and see this has been done for you. Now, remember, when you're adding images of any kind, as you add them, we are now, this is another change, right? We are now totaling the media storage requirement, because in order to keep this app performant, adding images, videos, and audio should never total above 200 megabytes of storage. So right now we're doing really good because we're at 809 KB. Right? And if I click on this links, I will get some tips on how to manage my external media files, right? So like I can link to files as opposed to importing them into the app as well. So there's lots of options there. Think of optimizing images because we are on the web, right? So we want to optimize for the web. And again, I can undo, depending on what I've done last, I can undo a certain number of things. When nothing's selected, I can come back here and I can say, let's not put an image at all. Okay, so now that that is the case for watching through that, the other thing I kind of wanted to show you as you work through this side of the panel is that you can also rename things from here. So there's a little pencil icon here that wasn't there before. And you can just rename things here, whatever you'd like to rename them. So it's just as easy to work over here for renaming things as it is. It used to be up here at the top. You can also do it from this panel here. So let's talk about this side of the screen a little bit, okay? This side of the screen is very helpful because it is actually every single object, or I should say every single control in this app is available from this Screen Explorer. And it has two toggle switches here. So we have a toggle switch that brings you back to the original. Those of you that have been with me for over a year, you remember when we just had this view, which was screen by screen by screen, very much like PowerPoint has slide by slide by slide, and you could move slides around, you could duplicate slides, and you had fun doing things like that. But then we added this second option here, which is now the default, that enables us to browse every single control in this app, which is pretty darn cool. And one of the things that I love most about this is that when I am clicking over here, it helps me select things that might be difficult for my mouse. So in order for me to select the whole gallery, I can just click the gallery name and I know that it will select that gallery. Notice that I still have my breadcrumbs on the bottom that kind of tell me the hierarchy of where I am. I have selected Browse Behaviors, and Browse Behaviors happens to be nested on the screen. So this object is at the top, it's the parent object, and then the gallery is a child object of the screen. Now if I go into the gallery and I click on something in there, now you can see that that label, there's the name in the breadcrumbs, in the properties panel where I could change it. And in the navigation here, I can kind of get a good perspective of what properties are available for me on the right, what kind of hierarchy it sits in. Is it inside the gallery, outside the gallery, and the ability to kind of work over here to rename it and or copy it and or delete it and or rename it. So we have this like context sensitive little menu here that you get from the ellipses that lets you copy this, delete it, and rename it. Okay, so this gives you functionality that we didn't have a year ago either, and this is kind of cool. Now, if you wanted to copy this control to another app, though, you would not use this copy right here. And that's one of our newest features we've released, is that you can Control C, literally just select the object, use your keyboard and do Control C, go to the other app and do Control V to copy controls from one app to the other. We still haven't given you the ability to copy entire screens, but you can copy controls from one app to the other. The key point I want to make here is that you do not want to use this copy for that. This copy is about what's happening within this app, okay? And then the other thing I want to point out about the navigation is that you can collapse things. So like it can get a little unwieldy here sometime. If you have a lot of screens, you might actually get lost in the sauce there, I kind of say. But if you collapse these screens, it's much easier to kind of tell where you are. So I'll collapse them sometime and just leave expanded what I'm working with. That way, it's easy for me to tell where I am. So that's a little tip I'll give you. And all of these also have the idea of duplicating the screen in the app, deleting the screen, moving it up and down in this list, which you can also do from the Screen Explorer view. Now, you may also notice that we've given a little bit of style and color to these icons. They're brighter, they're more interesting to look at. But that's not just for aesthetics. That's to help you recognize controls by their type. So all labels look like the little pencil with the rectangle. All shapes look like a set of shapes, square, triangle, circle. And by the way, when you're inserting shapes, here's a tip I'll give you. All shapes are at the bottom of the icons. So just go straight down to the bottom if you want to get to shapes. That's where they are. Okay, we've gotten some feedback that says maybe they should be at the top, but I'll let you know how that goes. And if you think they should be at the top, please put a comment below. Okay, so that's kind of helpful. But these colors and these symbols help you to recognize the control type. Again, depending on what the type of control is, you have different properties. One of the things I always notice is that image controls normally have a radius property, which enables me to round the corners. So do text inputs, but labels do not have that. So that's why it's important to kind of recognize your controls and what they are. And here's where I say go to the docs.microsoft.com or go to our community. Let me just show you that real quick. This is something that you definitely should like bookmark somewhere if you have time. Go to our community and then go to Learn and Documentation. And once you're in Documentation, look on the left side here and find Reference for Canvas apps. and you will see our controls reference. And what it does is it takes you through every single control and lets you know what properties are available for that control, what that control does, and so on and so forth. It even takes the time to separate the most important properties or the key properties from the additional properties. So I strongly suggest that you check out the control reference in our community, okay? So going back to the app, I want to show you a couple more things. We talked about this panel over here. We talked about the Explorer and how we can browse objects and swap back and forth from the objects to the screen. But did you notice also the ribbon itself has changed, okay? And everything up here. So we are trying to align with General Office 365, Dynamics 365 best practices so that you feel comfortable wherever you're working in the Microsoft Cloud, right? So we've kind of copied some of the icons that you have seen in other applications, and we've located them in that top bar. And we've simplified the ribbon so that you only basically have groups of things that you may need. Now we are continuously simplifying the ribbon, so there may be new additions to eliminate the need of you memorizing where is everything. So we're working to group things in ways that are obvious to you. Please give us feedback if you have ideas on this. I know for a lot of people this is not a priority, but it really can save time if it's easy for you to recognize the groupings in the ribbon. Okay, remember that you don't have to do as a formula for an action anymore, right? So if I click on a button here and I bring that button into my app, there's my button, and I want that button to do something, I will normally find what that button will do from the action menu, right? I can attach a flow to this button and it will actually help me get that started, you know, so that I can start making my flow that's going to work when I click this button. I can also go to the on select property, literally just can you bring me there, which you are right here in the on select property. I can remove any events on this, right? I can do a collection from a button. I can navigate to a different screen. So investigate the action menu. It can be very helpful, especially when it comes to buttons. Like with navigation, right? I don't have to go type navigate to screen name, comma, transition, fade. Basically, if I drop down navigation, I can just click the screen I want to navigate to, and the formula will be written for me right there. This is another thing that we've done for you. You may also notice that while I'm working, this is actually doing some auto saving. But I most definitely can do a Control S in order to save my app intermittently, okay? And so that's a very helpful thing. And if you look up here by the name, it actually lets me know, oh, you've done some saving, but you have not published it yet, right? Because I don't want to forget that nobody else is going to see what I saved until I've published it, right? So it's kind of giving me a heads up here that I haven't published it. It's also giving me access over here to my sharing, which we didn't used to give you access to from here. You'd have to go to File, and then you'd have to go to Share. Now you could actually bring that access right here. And that's something that we're hoping to do over time, is bring things that are in the backstage up front where you can see them. So pay attention to how we're revising the UI. And my Friday functions note to you today is please play around with these different ways to configure without the formula bar. And then don't stop loving the formula bar, because if you're anything like me, you're going to want to go up there and tweak it. You're going to want to go and put if statements. You're going to want to set rules. You might want to do other things if you're one of those people who likes doing that kind of thing. But if you're not and you just want to get it done, then you don't have to write a formula as much as you used to before. You can just click on toggle switches to make things invisible, get them back by turning the toggle switch back on. You can actually, if for instance you hide that and so now you don't even see it anymore, now you can use your object browser to select it even though it's invisible on the screen, and then just toggle it back to being visible. So a lot less formula things possible. You can do a lot of configuration without ever touching the formula bar. I know that's a very strange thing for me to say during a Friday Functions video, but I just wanted to point these things out to you. Now, in the meantime, while I'm telling you about that, I do want to tell you that if you go to the app settings, this is in the backstage, and you actually peek there, you will find that we are adding experimental features. Ooh, this is kind of exciting. And these experimental features are backed up by blogs in our environment. So you just go to the blog and you go look for new features, and these will be listed there. Give these a try, because if you give us good feedback on these, we're going to keep them. They won't be experimental. But if we don't get that great feedback, it's possible they can fall away. So give them a try. Ask questions if you don't understand what they are. But don't forget, there's these hidden gems in the backstage of your app. And as time goes on, we're going to bring them forward so they won't be so hidden. But I wanted to point them out to you today in this Friday Functions video so that you could try some new stuff tomorrow. I really hope you have an excellent weekend, and I look forward to our next Friday Functions video. By the way, a few people have pointed out that I have not finished doing the budget tracker in SharePoint, and I know that. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I ran into some issues with delegation as far as those mathematical functions go, the sums and stuff. And I'm working out what's the best way to approach that. And then I will get back to you. So just give me like maybe 2 more weeks and we'll get back into that. All right. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks for being patient. And please check out what's new. We're working hard for you. Take care. Happy power apping.